All right, Cambria, we're going to take a look at your 5 characteristics posting. So we'll jump right in, take a look here. I think I have you queued up and we'll share. So first thing I want to do is just take a look here at whether you've got everything posted up here. So you got direction and intensity. You've got labels on here as to the ratios. That's good. Temperature. Everything seems to be in order. You've got everything the right size and contrast and hardness. So everything's there. I am noticing these are all in color. I'm not sure if we couldn't find the black and white setting or the monochrome setting, or if you don't have a monochrome setting, let's chat about that. I can probably find it on your camera somewhere. Almost all cameras have some sort of monochrome or black and white setting. If you can't find stuff like that, just let me know. There's nothing wrong with not knowing where things are in cameras. You just need to be able to know where to go to find it most of the time. Now, if it just happens to not have it at all, well, we can sometimes find ways around that also. So either way, just when there's a parameter up there that doesn't seem to match what your tool looks like it can do, just come to me and we'll look at it and see if there's an alternative we can do. So let's look at what we have here. I will just say the first two here on direction, this is really an excellent job what you're doing here. This is very, very good. You're letting things run off the page. We're going on the top and the bottom. It's breaking up the surface plane, but also you're incorporating the shadows into the composition. Notice how this shadow kind of comes up here. Of course, you notice it. You made the photograph. And so this shadow engaging here becomes another element within the composition. This is very much like Giorgio Morandi. If you've ever heard of Giorgio Morandi, look up that name. He's an Italian painter from the mid-20th century, and his paintings were of nothing more than just abstract vessels, and just he took it very, very seriously, the possibilities of positive, negative shape and the interplay of shadows and highlights and things. And this one's very reminiscent of it, as well as this one. What you're doing here is very, very sensitive to the play on shadows and light. This takes time to develop, and if you're doing it naturally, this is excellent. This is right where we want you to be, what we want you to be looking at. These get a little bit dark on us when the light kind of takes that turn in the direction. That's what sometimes happens as we get those voids. This is where some of the other components of the lighting scenarios that we worked on kind of come into play. But those got a little dark. But the first couple there were just outstanding. Very, very good. It's kind of exactly what we're looking to have you do in those. On the intensity, this is where we start to be able to bring that other light source in. And I would say, again, this is a very, very nicely done. The key here is to make sure that the balancing, the one light to the other, is appropriate. When you have two lights, we don't want them to compete with each other. We definitely want one of them to be the key light, the main light source, and the other one to simply contribute to the scene. In other words, add a little bit more luminosity to the shadow areas. Excuse me. And that's what you're doing here. It's not overwhelming. We're not getting what's called the butterfly effect, which is where it's evenly split. And so you have a light over here and a light over here, and they're sort of competing with each other. And then you have a dark stream like in the middle. We're not getting that. You can see you have a nice shape here. The two lights are forming two distinctly different shapes. That's a good thing. We do have a little bit of this weird interplay with the different shadows, but it's minimized by your composition. Would have liked to have seen this cut off right here. It would have improved the composition, believe it or not, quite a bit. But this is a good job of working, again, playing with the shadows. Keep doing this. Keep doing this. If this is something you just naturally came up on, naturally started to do, excellent. I'm pointing it out, hopefully not ruining it for you, but it's excellent, excellent work. When you take a step back like this, you're taking a step back from the from the beauty and the complexity of what you're doing, they start to become objects floating. Now, it doesn't mean you can't make this work, but this is a much more effective version of this. Again, you're playing around here, maybe trying to find where the right composition is, but the problem isn't the composition. The problem is you're just too far away to activate the space really well. I do like what you're doing. I do applaud you for trying to create some shape and some space of the table. This is a good job. If you would have brought those objects closer, though, you would have been able to achieve what you're trying to do there, because you would have had both the sort of active space over here on the one side. Let's use the mouse. Active space over here on the one side, and then the breakup over here. This is some good stuff. I'm only trying to give you maybe some tips on how we can improve it, of course. Okay, getting into the temperature now, let's kind of back up and do a little bit of an overview here. Now, temperature is really going to be about the interplay of the different colors that you can achieve by, one, intermixing and sort of miscalibrating things. And then what happens when you start to mix both the camera settings and the lighting settings at the same time? You're getting some pretty subtle results. This may just have been the ones you chose. You may not have really felt that the ones that were totally blue or totally orange were to your taste, and that's fine. But I do want to be sure that you're working with those and that you understand that the point of the temperature really was to explore those varieties and to kind of get to know them. And even some of the more aggressive ones where it turns blue or purple, how to kind of work with that, pull it back a little bit and use it in a subtle way that still kind of has that otherworldly, almost tense feel about it. You can really use it to your advantage. Getting into the contrast now, this is actually a much more complex or much more sophisticated way to control the shadow areas compared to the intensity, where you're just adding a light. Adding a light is a very sort of, I guess you could say, heavy-handed way to try to manipulate the shadow areas. Reflecting, which it controls the contrast area, not the intensity. It controls the variations of tones. That's really going to be the more complex way to do it. It looks like you're getting the hang of it here, where you've got the key light coming over from this side, and you're starting to get some reflection back in here. What you're not getting is that double shadow area, which is really, one of the great advantages of using a reflector over the additional light. Also, you're not going to get that butterfly look where you're competing with the light source. That reflector is always going to be less intense than the key, because the reflector is only just grabbing the leftovers. It's grabbing the scraps of light that were left over from the key light and throwing it back into the scene. This is wonderful material to be able to recycle, but we're putting it back into the scene and making very good use of it. This one is a really lovely composition, once again, because you're right into the composition. You're taking advantage of that reflector. You have some really good intuition here, I'm sensing, on photography here. So I want to encourage you to continue to do those things. As we get into now some of these where we're looking at the key light where it's diffused, now you can really start to see almost like a studio light quality coming into play here. That is where you're going to get the softened key light. It's not so hard and not so harsh anymore. Where both of them are softened, you really kind of get that almost that soft glow kind of thing. You really see this in portrait photography quite a bit. Then I throw in, you got these reflective objects. This one seemed to kind of get away from you. I'm not sure. It does not have the same sort of delicate quality as the other ones. This one almost seems like, I don't know, like a misfire or something, but we can forgive that one, right? Yeah, you've got some really good instincts here. Some excellent stuff. I mean, you still have some, some things that I think you could tighten up. You're just learning, basically. I mean, I'm presuming that some of these concepts are new. However, you probably have been working with them, just didn't have a name for them before. So I'm very happy to see what you're doing. I'm very excited to see what you're going to be making in the future here. And we'll see you in the studio. All right. Bye now.